There was a couple of calls this day to be praying for our government. We're praying for the government we do not have. Do not have one. Made Michelle mad, didn't it? Michelle, didn't you get mad about that? No government?
I wouldn't say mad, I would say...
And what did you say needs done?
Disappointed.
What did you say needs done?
we need an amendment to the Constitution.
Amen. And how do you get an amendment to the Constitution? Not easily.
No, not so much.
Well, I thought I knew, so I wanted to try to double check my knowledge. So I went on the National Archives site on the web, and guess what? It's down. There is none.
Imagine.
Difficult process, intentionally so, and it's good that it is difficult. Takes 2/3 of both houses, representatives and senators. Takes 2/3 to get the bill passed. And then it goes to the states. How many of the states does it take? 3/4. You're almost right. 2/3 of both houses, 3/4 of the states, and they have 7 years to get that 3/4. It's difficult. But they cannot vote themselves no pay. So our government is shut down, but not the congressmen. They're paid. And you can't take that away. They can only vote on the next Congress to have whatever pay they're going to have. They can't vote on their own. Well, that's okay. I don't get to vote on mine either, do I? No. Doesn't take much. And you have a very easy time to change mine. Motion a second and it'll pass. There are two things that are very easily broken. Eggs, and your oath. I made a New Year's resolution. Here we are into the third week of the month, and have you broken any New Year's resolution? I've already broken one. Do you know what it is? It's right in front of you. You could be looking at it. I promised a vow that I would never make a mistake in the date of the bulletin. What does it say on your bulletin? What does it say?
Last Sunday's day.
It's last Sunday's date, so I've already broken my first resolution that I was going to make. And you and I make vows all of the time. If you are married, you make vows. Has anyone, don't say it, don't put your hand up, but has anybody tried to get a loan lately? You made a vow. Has anyone here flipped out the plastic? You made a vow. When you put that in the little machine, you promised that you would repay it. We all make vows all of the time. All of us. In the 5th chapter of the book of Ecclesiastes, very first verse, guard your steps when you go to the house of God. Go near to listen rather than to offer the sacrifice of fools who do not know what they do. Be not quick with your mouth. Do not be hasty in your heart. Do not utter anything before God. God is in heaven, you are on earth. So let your words be few. As a dream comes when there are many cares, so the speech of a fool when there are many words. When you make a vow to God, do not delay in fulfilling it. He has no pleasure in fools. Be careful in your vows before God. It is better not to vow, says Ecclesiastes, than to make a vow, a promise, and fail to keep it. How many here are members of this church? How many here are members of any church? How many of you who are members of a church had to make some kind of profession of your faith before you were received into the membership? That's a vow. On the 29th of September, 1956, I made a vow. When I walked an aisle and accepted Christ as my Savior, and I vowed my life, I gave my life, I submitted myself to Him. Have I kept it? Many times, no. But it's a vow that God will hold me in judgment for. We make promises all the time. Promises are promises and promises all of the time. In the 6th chapter of Mark, King Herod made a promise. You know the story in that 6th chapter of Mark. He's on his throne, everybody's gathered, he's all excited. They have a party, and a beautiful girl dances before him. Hollywood loved it, made great movies out of it. The 7 Veils of Salome. She dances and he gets titillated and he gets excited. And he says these words. The king said to the girl, "Ask me what you want, and I'll give it to you." And he promised her with an oath, "Whatever you ask, I will give you, even half of my kingdom." He made a vow. And the reason he made that vow, he was excited and he wanted to save face. She goes to her mother. "Mama, he will give me anything. What should we ask for?" "I want the head of John the Baptizer. I want him. I don't like him. The preacher offended me. Cut off his head." And so King Herod, who, believe it or not, loved to go and listen to John teach and preach, had his head cut off and brought on a platter to save face. A lot of times you make a vow and then you have to do something or lose your credibility and you want to save face. Foolish promises we oftentimes make. And when we make a foolish promise and we break it, we're embarrassed. We don't want other people. That's why we ask people to make a profession of faith publicly in front of people. Because once you've done it in front of people, you're either going to keep it or you're going to be embarrassed. Foolish promises. We make them all the time. Sometimes we make empty promises. In the Gospel of John, there's a story. Jesus is away from Jerusalem and away from that part of the country, and he gets word that a dear friend of his has died, named Lazarus. And he delays. He doesn't go right away. He knows God has a purpose and a plan in this. He knows that he will go and Lazarus will live again. He will raise him from the dead, but he doesn't go right away. And so the disciples all begin to grumble. And then Thomas. Shame we call it Doubting Thomas. Because he speaks up and he says, me? Let me tell you. I am ready to go with you, Jesus. And I'm telling all the other disciples, we all ought to go that we may die with him. He made a promise that he was willing to go and die with Jesus. But in the Garden of Gethsemane, where's Thomas? He's gone. On Mount Calvary, when Jesus is nailed to the cross, where is Thomas? He's not there. Sometimes we make promises that are empty promises. We mean well, good intentions, but we're not going to follow through. In the Gospel of Luke, there's another story. You know this one very well. Very well. In the upper room, Jesus and his disciples are gathered for what we call the Lord's Supper, to remember his death, his sacrifice. And what does Peter say? Lord, I'm ready to go with you to prison and death. Jesus answered him, empty promise. I tell you, Peter, before the rooster crows today, once, twice, 3 times, you will deny that you even knew me. Jesus knows that we mean well. Jesus knows that we have good intentions. But Jesus knows how weak we really are. And he knows that we may make promises. You made promises. I made promises when we came into the church. That whole side made promises. We all make promises. But they're oftentimes empty promises. We mean well. Foolish promises, empty promises. Sometimes we make uninformed promises. We don't really know what it's going to cost. There was a man one time wanted to go with Jesus. He was proud to be a part of Jesus. Go with you all the way. Do anything you want me to do. Serve you from this day forward. I dedicate my life and I will go with you. And in Luke chapter 9, as they're walking along the road, a man said to him, I will follow you everywhere you go. Jesus replied, do you know what you're talking about? Foxes, they have dens. The birds of the air, they have nests. But I don't have anywhere to lay my head. You want to follow me, said Jesus, that's good. Good decision. Want you to do it. But you better be informed that it's going to cost you something. There's a price to be paid. How many of us have accepted Christ, walking out, given ourselves to Christ, and not willing to pay the cost? My goodness. The cost to just come and sit for less than an hour, mind you? No. We don't want to pay that price. Sometimes we make promises and we don't realize just how serious it is. Don't make a vow, said Ecclesiastes. Don't make a promise, Jesus is saying, unless you know the cost and are willing to pay it. In the Gospel of Mark, verse 10, a man came to Jesus. And I love the way this story starts out in Mark 10, verse 21 and following. Jesus is looking to this man and loves him. And says, one thing you lack, you who want to follow me. You're missing something. Go and sell everything and give it to the poor. And you will have treasure treasures in heaven. Then come and follow me. At this, the man's face fell, and he went away sad, because he had great wealth. And Jesus watched him walk away and looked at him, and even as he's leaving, he's looking at his back as he walks away. Jesus is loving him. He loves you. He loves me. He loves me when I make those promises. It's not a closing hymn. I like closing hymns. It's an invitation. You old timers are going to like this one. It was in the 1940 Broadman hymnal. Some of you cut your teeth on that, grew up with that. They never carried it over. But we have it. And I want you to accept an invitation today. To make a vow. To promise a vow. But be very aware, it's better not to make it if you're not going to keep it. Understand? Take your song sheet, please. David will be playing it. June will be leading this down in the vault.